Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morowski, and I am the Associate Director for Partnerships at Parker Dewey. And today's presentation is really digging into some of the data for what we see makes applications and students competitive when it comes to applying for micro internships, and some other data-driven resources and steps that you can take to increase your students' likelihood of selection for these opportunities. Now, often the people who attend this webinar are already partners, but in case there are a few of you in the room who are prospective partners, I'm going to do a quick overview of exactly who Parker Dewey is, what micro internships are, and then from there, we'll start talking about those crucial data points, resources and steps for you to hit those data points, and then we'll talk about how to measure progress. We also have a special fall 2025 offer. This is the second time we've done this webinar, and the first time I got a little caught up in the data and didn't get to really highlight the offer well. So preview, if you've heard of Parker Dewey Plus before, there is an opportunity this fall to try to get that Parker Dewey Plus access, typically a $2,000 subscription, but to try it out at no cost. So we'll go over the details for how you can get that offer. So with that overview of Parker Dewey, who are we and what do we do? We are a candidate insights platform, and those candidate insights that employers use to make smarter hiring decisions are the result of micro internships. So this helps students because these micro internships are equitable opportunities, and it makes it a lot easier for them to bridge the gap between college and career, especially those students who tend to have hectic schedules or maybe aren't sure what they want to do next. And having come from career services myself, I know that can be a lot of our students. So how this helps companies or employers in particular is it allows those employers to access, engage, and assess that early career talent for longer term opportunities. This could be assessing them for internships, it could be assessing them for full-time roles, but it allows them to reach those candidates that maybe don't have time to make it to the career fair, or maybe don't have the transportation or aren't in the right geographic location to jump right into applying for the traditional internship. Basically, it acts as kind of an on-ramp to those longer term opportunities. So for our folks who are in the room today, I see 80% of you are career services. We've got someone in athletics, someone in student affairs, and then someone in the mysterious other category. For all of you, this helps you because in higher ed, we all share the same goal of helping these students get experience and helping these employers connect with that talent. So we have over 800 partners where really we're here to support you in connecting those two with these micro internships. Now, I know I've used the term micro internships a couple of times. So for those who aren't already familiar or may just need a refresher, these micro internships are short-term paid professional projects. So delving into each of those elements, projects means there's a specific deliverable that the micro intern is completing and then handing off, typically virtually, over 90%. There's our first data point. Over 90% of micro internships are remote, but there's something specific they're getting done. It could be creating an email marketing campaign. It could be going through data to look for insights and writing up a report. It could be doing research and writing up findings. But there's something they complete and then give to the company to show their skills in whatever area that company has posted the project in. Because they're done with the micro internship, when they're done with the project, these are very short term, usually somewhere between 10 and 40 hours in total. So again, for your students who have hectic schedules, I know we have the student athlete person in the room. This is great for student athletes. This is great for first generation students, non-traditional students who are exploring or maybe don't have a lot of spare time because of work and family obligations. These projects are posted year round. So any time of year, they're going to be seeing new opportunities on the platform. They don't necessarily align with the academic calendar. And every single micro internship on the Parker Dewey platform is paid. One of our big goals is accessibility, and we know a lot of students can't afford to spend the time on something unless it is paid. So how that works is in the typical model, a company will create an account and post their project. There's no cost for them to do either of those things. If for some reason they don't get candidates they're excited about, which really doesn't happen, but say it did, they close the project and they don't owe Parker Dewey anything. Only when they select their micro intern do they receive an invoice from Parker Dewey. They pay the Parker Dewey team, and then we act as the employer of record. So what that means is we're getting the micro intern's payroll information. We're processing payroll. If they earn above the threshold, we're taking care of the tax forms. 90% of what the company pays ends up in that micro intern's pocket, and the 10% difference covers those costs of us being the employer of record. And that's what makes it really easy for these employers to engage these students as an audition for longer term roles without having to take on all that administrative burden. The projects also need to be professional, so assessing for those skills that they're seeking out in longer term hires. And that's really the ultimate goal of micro internships, is to be used as a recruiting tool. Again, to allow companies to access talent they might be missing otherwise, engage them in a meaningful way, and assess, would this person be a good fit for my traditional internship? Would they be a good fit for my full-time role? Something I like to make very clear coming from career services and higher education is these micro internships are not designed to replace traditional internships. They are designed to be a pathway to more of those opportunities and to make those opportunities more meaningful. In our recent student sentiment survey, over 80% of students said they can tell in the first week of an internship if this is going to be a great experience or if we're just kind of getting through the term. And if it's the latter, that's a missed opportunity on both sides. The company could have been engaging someone who had been more excited about potentially converting. The student could have been using that time to explore opportunities that might be a better fit. So micro internships are offering that opportunity for folks to try each other out and making sure they're making the right decisions going forward. We also see these micro internships are just an absolutely fabulous way for students to build on their career readiness. So we use the NACE career readiness competencies to help students reflect and assess on what, if any, impact did they feel a micro internship had on their career readiness. As you can see across the board, the most common response is that they feel like they improved a lot. Yes, these are short-term experiences, but they're meaningful short-term experiences that are helping students build their skills. And you can see, even if they don't feel like they increased in terms of their ability, they're more likely to report that they built confidence, which is also just so key in the internship and job search, than they are to say that there was no change at all. So if you are interested in that report, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm labeling it career readiness. And I often get the question, will the slides and recording be sent out afterwards? They sure will, and all the links in this presentation will be available to you too. Some other outcomes we see from our post-micro internship survey is that this is really comprehensive. So y'all probably noticed that from here, that across the board we're seeing these things. But to put a number on it, nearly 90% of micro interns feel they have improved in 3 or more of the career competencies. So this isn't micro interns getting a project and all of them just saying, yeah, I improved in technology or any one particular area. We're seeing across these competencies some really nice improvement. That stated, the most improved area is professionalism. So if you are getting feedback from employers saying, I want to recruit your students, I'm interested in their talent, but they're struggling a little bit with professionalism, this is a great opportunity for you to share not just with your students who you want to help build those skills, but share it with the employers who make those comments. If they start engaging your students in micro internships earlier, the data we're getting back shows that they're going to have a more professional talent pool to pick from when those students are ready for applying for their full-time roles. And students are also really seeing the value of these experiences, with 99% of micro interns likely to add Parker Dewey to a friend. Now, on the topic of data, we know that this data is probably helpful to you and you're interested in seeing it uniquely for your institution. So something we're excited to share. Last time we did this webinar, it was coming soon. Today, it's recently added. If you are micro interns or students from your institution who have done micro internships, have completed our post-experience survey, not required, but highly encouraged, then you will be able to see those survey results in, if you're a basic level partner, your annual data request, and if you are a Parker Dewey Plus partner, you are able to see that on demand in your Parker Dewey Plus dashboard. If you're not familiar with the different levels of partnership, we are going to touch on those a little bit later. Now, from the employer side, also seeing some really nice outcomes. We ask employers after a micro internship is completed to reflect on the performance of that micro intern. So you could see the majority of employers are saying, oh my gosh, this student executed like an industry veteran. We're asking them to assess in terms of overall satisfaction, communication, presentation, quality and accuracy, skill, and timeliness. Now, over 97% of micro interns are meeting or exceeding expectations. So that is a demonstration that when students complete a profile, when they apply in the way that Parker Dewey is set up, that is helping employers readily determine, would this person be a good fit for this project? And is this person going to give the level of details for the project I'm looking for? If the process didn't work, we wouldn't be seeing that over 97% satisfaction rate. We also see some really nice longer term outcomes for employers. That means they benefit from this too. If students or if employers are trying to reach different demographics, something we're very proud of is over 80% of the students and recent graduates that get selected for micro internships come from historically underrepresented populations in the workplace. So if you have employers that are trying to reach demographics they may not be able to tap yet, this is a great way for them to do it. It's also cost effective. I talked earlier about how over 80% of students know in the first week if something's a fit or not. Like I said, that's a waste of not only time, but money if they know right away this isn't a good fit. That company could have used that money for those summer internships to engage talent that would have been better aligned, and they could have figured out who that talent was if they had spent a little bit of money, maybe engaging multiple students in a micro internship before selecting one. So it's really an opportunity for them to make more valuable and informed hiring decisions. And we also see that employers who are hiring Parker Dewey micro interns are seeing those hires stay in their first full-time role for longer. Compared to recent graduates as a whole, we know that less than half of them are staying in that first full-time role for more than a year. But when we look at recent graduates who completed micro internships, almost all of them are staying there for more than 12 months. And that saves companies money too. If that student, or in that case, recent graduate, has been onboarded, they've spent even more time, even more money, only for them to realize it's not actually a right fit. Micro internships help them assess that early. Now, sometimes it's that recent graduate going, oh, I thought that this was where I wanted to be, but I'm realizing with this project, it's not actually a fit for me. And we still consider that a win. When they do find that first full-time role that aligns with what they learned about themselves in the micro internship, they're still more likely to stay there for more than a year, and it saves the company that time and money they would have spent on onboarding. So now that we've talked about some of the outcomes of micro internships, now I want to start shifting to talking about some of those data points that are designed to help your students be successful. What are the things that they need to hit to help them get selected for these micro internships? And one of the things we want to highlight, so you can encourage your students to take that next step, is we're seeing a lot of problems with persistence from potential micro interns. So over 80% of career launchers who have logged in within the last year haven't taken that next step to actually apply for a micro internship. And obviously, if you don't apply, you can't get selected. So we want to offer some context for what we're seeing and what this likely means. One, they're interested in the model. We all know how difficult it can be to get students to take action sometimes. The fact that they're signing up means that they are finding these short-term paid professional projects appealing. In fact, we had that confirmed in our recent student sentiment survey. Over 95% of respondents said giving them an opportunity in a real paid way to demonstrate their skills is exactly how they want to be recruited. So they're excited about the potential for these projects. That said, they are students. Sometimes they need some reminders, and that reminder might be enough to get them to go back and apply. But what we're seeing more often is they're logging in, and while there are always projects on the Parker Dewey platform, they may not be seeing projects from companies they recognize or companies or projects that align with their fields of study or intended career goals. So that's one of the reasons, and we're going to talk more about this in this presentation, but one of the many reasons why employer engagement is so key when it comes to micro internships. We're also seeing that roughly 15% of career launchers who have logged in within the last year and applied to at least one project have been selected. Now, I know you may be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm sharing this resource with students and only 15% are getting selected. But I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into what's happening and what we're seeing from those applicants who are applying but not getting selected. And what we're seeing consistently is those who have applied but aren't selected tend to be those who have applied to less than five. So we're seeing once we get to that threshold of applying for five or more, that likelihood of being selected, it more than triples. So encouraging your students to continue applying really is key in improving their likelihood of success. And we continue to see that trajectory. Once they get to having applied to more than 10, you see that that likelihood of being selected really goes up again. And we're seeing that they are more likely than not, after they've applied to that many projects, to be selected. Now, that's not to say that every candidate needs to apply to that many micro internships before being selected. We often do see students who apply for one and they wait until they find the one that's a really good fit and then they'll get selected. It certainly does happen, but the norm is that it's going to take them a few applications. Again, usually five or more before they are able to secure that micro internship experience. So I already talked a little bit about resilience. Want to highlight the persistence too. Having clocked that the likelihood of selection more than triples when career launchers apply to more than five projects, we're also seeing that less than 5% of the career launchers who logged in within last year have actually persisted to that point. So encouraging your students to make sure that they are continuing to apply really is key in helping them get selected. A reminder again of what it likely means when students are creating accounts but not persisting to apply. They're interested, they might need a reminder, but the most likely thing is they may not be seeing opportunities that align with their goals and their studies. Now, if you are seeing some of those students, if 60% more than of those who apply to 10 or more get selected, that still means there is that 40 or less than 40% who are applying to that many projects but struggling. When we see those who have applied for 10 or more projects and they still haven't been selected, that's usually an indication that there's something about their profile or something about their application responses that could use some support. So common things we're noticing about these applications, the profiles may not have resumes attached. They may not have added a personal statement. And to be clear, this is max 255 characters. It's not an essay. Maybe they didn't add highlighted experience. And also want to highlight, for a lot of students, a micro internship may be their first professional experience. So this doesn't have to be jobs or internships in that section. This can be volunteer projects, it can be extracurricular projects, it can even be class projects. But if they're applying for a micro internship, that means they have skills that they want to apply to that professional project. Anything where they've demonstrated those skills, that's something that's worth it for them to highlight in that experience section. Something we also unfortunately see a lot of, especially for those who are applying for a lot of projects but not being selected, is that their profiles or application responses contain punctuation or grammatical errors. So here we have some examples of a few applications. These have been real responses. On the left, you can see those that have been selected. On the right, you can see those that were not. So sometimes we see candidates who are applying in all caps, who have misspelled words, who are very focused on how it would benefit them as opposed to the skills they would bring to the opportunity. So again, those grammatical errors are those little things. If it comes down between two candidates, that can often really make the difference in which candidate a company or employer is going to select. Another thing that we sometimes see from these frequent flyer appliers is they're not submitting customized application responses. Oftentimes, we'll see those who are applying in bulk, just copying and pasting, you should pick me, and then a generic little paragraph that doesn't have anything to do with that micro internship itself. Or sometimes has something to do with a field that actually isn't relevant at all to that micro internship. So again, these are not intended to be essays. 2 to 4 sentences is typically going to be effective for any of these short answer questions, but it's important for them to customize their responses based on the project they're applying for. And then finally, we're seeing sometimes that they're applying for projects that aren't actually a good fit for those skills. Unfortunately, we've seen it on more than a few occasions. One of the questions a company might ask is, what experience do you have with insert software necessary for this project or insert process that really is the entirety of the project? And a candidate will say, none. And that's it. That's the whole response. And those types of responses are just not going to be selected. So I know with the majority of the folks in the room being career services folks, you are well aware of a lot of these challenges, but really walking your students through the application process and making these things clear It's still beneficial because unfortunately we're still seeing applications that include these faux pas. Another important data piece in helping your students get selected is encouraging them to log in regularly. On average, we're seeing that those who have been selected for at least one micro internship are logging in about 8 times more than those who have not been selected. So those who have logged in, but they haven't been selected, maybe they have applied, maybe they haven't applied, they're averaging at about 3 logins before they say, okay, I'm not coming back. But those who are logging in regularly, by nature of micro internships, they're seeing more opportunities because most of these projects make a selection within a week or less after they've been posted. So if your students are logging in once a month, they're really only seeing about a quarter of the opportunities that are getting posted to the platform because those other projects are cycling through and making selections before they ever even clocked them. So if 26 still seems like a lot of logins, I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into how those averages are playing out. So those who have never applied at all, now reminder, that average of 3 included those who have never applied and those who have applied but not been selected. For those who have never applied at all, they're logging in on average twice. They're deciding, I'm not seeing opportunities or whatever else it may be. Maybe they forgot they created an account or they're not checking their email, but they're logging in twice and they're not ending up applying. Those who have applied but have not been selected are logging in on average 7 times. So they're seeing some opportunities they're interested in or interested enough to apply, but they're not quite persisting to that 5 or more point to actually get selected. Those who have been selected, I want to highlight the difference between those two numbers, 7 to 14. They are logging in twice as much as those who have expressed interest, who are trying to apply, compared to those who are getting selected. So again, we're seeing that strong correlation, and it continues when we look at those who have been selected for 2 or more. There are some micro interns on this platform who are just getting selected over and over again. And there are folks that are keeping an eye on the platform. They're applying regularly. They're customizing those applications. So again, if that 56 seems like a lot, just our top 10 most hired micro interns in the last year, they were selected for a cumulative 177 micro internships. They logged in over 15,000 times combined. So just those 10 micro interns are really upping that average. And they each add 88 logins per selection. So not averaging between the 10 of them, but per selection, they were logging in quite a bit. So those were some of those pieces that we hope are really helpful when you're coaching your students in how they can be successful in micro internships. Those key takeaways again are one, it is important for them to continue applying. 5 or more applications are where we really see that likelihood of being selected increase. It more than triples compared to those who have applied to less than 5. Logging in regularly is also key. Reminder that on average, career launchers who have been selected are logging in twice as often as those who don't. It really does make a difference. Applications need to be thoughtful, proofread, and complete, and that employer engagement is key. So we are going to talk about some of that employer engagement efforts since a lot of those indicators of what's going on tends to tie back to maybe employers haven't been engaged, maybe they're not seeing opportunities that align with their skills. So to help you make sure students are aware of these success metrics, to help you share it with employers, you have 2 tools at your disposal if you are a Parker Dewey partner. If you are not already a Parker Dewey partner, I'm going to go ahead and launch a little poll here. So we have some different partnership options. In the poll, we have a very basic level or very basic description of these different options. So as I'm describing them, if you are interested in any particular one, please fill out that poll. Or if you're happy with your current level of partnership, please feel free to let us know that as well. But any Parker Dewey partner has these 2 pages that are designed to make it easy for you to spread the word about micro internships. Now, for some of you who have been partners for a while, you may have noticed that these pages recently changed. We did a lot of testing to see what is most helpful in helping students understand what micro internships are, what formats, what information. So your unique pages are going to look like this, but instead of Parker Dewey University, it's going to have your logo, your colors. So this is going to be what you share with students to help them understand how this works. It highlights some eligibility FAQs, some of those micro internships by the number. Since this is a data-driven webinar, reminder, 100% are paid. Over 90% are remote. 99% of micro interns would recommend Parker Dewey to a friend. It lets them know what to expect and some additional resources. But again, focusing on data, what our heat maps have showed us is most students aren't even going to scroll beyond this. They're going to read the description, they're going to maybe watch the video, and they're going to create their account. So that's why once they do create their account, they have resources and steps that they're going to receive via email to help them be successful with micro internships. Now, the other page that you have at your disposal is a page to share with employers because it really is crucial to do employer engagement too. So this is going to explain to your employers how this benefits them, what they can expect after they create their account, how it works, and it even gives them some examples of different projects they can post, but they're welcome to post a custom project too. And if they have questions, we do have FAQs. Sorry, I realized I'm scrolling through that rather quickly, but we do have FAQs and we have a form at the bottom. So if you are speaking with an employer and they're saying, I'm looking to hire for XYZ entry-level role, but I don't understand how I would use micro internships to recruit for that role, or I don't understand what project would allow me to assess for those skills, encourage them to fill out this form. We have been doing this since 2015. We are happy to help them figure out a project that is not going to require extensive onboarding, but is still going to be meaningful enough for them to assess the skills of the candidates. So we've seen, for example, a medical device company, Smith and Nephew, who posted a micro internship saying, pick one of our products and make a PowerPoint about it. They were having trouble hiring for their entry-level sales roles, but by having those students complete a micro internship, showing their presentation skills, demonstrating their research skills, the ability to understand the product, they were able to extend offers to those who did a great job. And because those students built familiarity with that company's brand through the project, everyone they extended an offer to accepted. So again, if you have employers who are saying, I want to recruit your students, I really want to engage them, how do I reach them? This is the way to do it, and have them connect with us so we can help them figure out the best way. So those are your landing pages that you have at your disposal to share out. And what you really want to do is for both audiences, make sure you are driving consistent traffic to those pages. So it's just a general rule of thumb. Our marketing team let us know this isn't student specific, this isn't employer specific, it's just humanity. But generally, we need to hear about things between 5 and 7 times, be exposed to a brand message between 5 and 7 times before it really sinks in and we go, I get it. I've heard about this before. Let me take action. So 5 to 7 times is the minimum goal to start seeing some of that traction you want to see, both on the student side and the employer side. If you can get it in front of them even more often, even better. So now I want to shift to talking about some of those ways that you can drive that traffic and awareness to your landing pages. So when we're looking at the student side of things, what we see here are examples of 4 institutions and the spikes in traffic they saw after they sent standalone emails about Parker Dewey. And you can see here, we've got different types of institutions. We've got a private research university. They sent out an email before winter break. They've got that nice spike there. We've got a private all-graduate research university. They sent out an email. They saw the spike. A public university, they sent it on spring break right before we did the first version of this webinar. That's why it's all the way to the right. But it correlates each of these bumps in traffic to sending a standalone email. Believe it or not, they do read your emails, or at least a percentage of them do. Because another note we want to keep in mind about emails is just in general, and again, this isn't specific to students, it's just in general, the average open rate for an email is under 36%, so just over 35. The average click rate, meaning the percentage of the recipients who will actually click and take action based on what you sent in your email, is under 3%. So we can see over here, the majority of recipients, it's frustrating, but they're never going to open your email. There's going to be some of them that open it but don't click on anything, and very few of them are going to actually take action. And that's just the nature of emails. It's not saying that it's a bad way to engage. We do see, you can see the traffic. These students all clicked, they take a look, but What we're trying to highlight is it's a great strategy, but it shouldn't necessarily be your only strategy. And if it is your primary strategy, it shouldn't just be one email. That's not going to do an effective job of reaching your audiences. Now, we have also seen that including Parker Dewey in student newsletters can be beneficial. So this is an example of a spike in traffic a private university saw after they included Parker Dewey in their regularly scheduled newsletter. This was a newsletter they were already sending out regularly, and they decided to highlight this as a resource, and they saw the spike in traffic as a result. We've also seen schools do some creative things with workshops and events that have led to spikes in traffic. So this can include things like tabling, workshops. We had a private liberal arts college that had a leap day event where they talked about leaping into your career with a micro internship. But regardless of the specific types, we tend to see that these workshops and presentations also do a nice job of bumping up traffic. Something else you can do to increase your students' likelihood of being selected is to promote our Parker Dewey events. These are regularly scheduled, and you have the resources or the details about these events from your student-facing page. Down here at the bottom, if you want to see what events there are, you can click on this, and this is going to show you those student-facing events, our FAQ webinars, our student office hours, and we have a quarterly event where we coach students on how they can reach out to companies of interest and encourage them to post micro internships. Between the two webinars, because the office hours, we don't record them, we don't necessarily take note of the emails that attend. It's very pop in, get what you need, pop back out. But for the webinar presentations, we have seen that over 300 registrants from past sessions of these webinars have been selected for micro internships. So we encourage you to share these events with your students too, to make sure they have a full understanding of best practices and how they can perhaps even take the initiative to create your own opportunities. So the ideal really, while all of these things standalone are great, the ideal is to drive consistent traffic. Again, we're trying to, at minimum, hit those 5 to 7 touch points per year. So what we have here is a university that is making that happen by having their Parker Dewey link prominently posted on their internships page. They know that's where their students are going when they're looking to start their careers. They also highlight that page regularly in their student emails and newsletters. So this is how they're getting consistent traffic. And as a result, they're seeing the outcomes. So that school that was on the last slide that has been doing that consistent promotion to students, they have been seeing their students are looking at the page, they're creating accounts, they're logging in. They have had their students selected for projects. As a whole, their students have earned more than $10,000. They're getting feedback from employers. This is working as intended. But for those who are inconsistently promoting or maybe not promoting at all, sometimes we have partners who set up partnership and then, maybe there's a change in contacts or they just have had some priority shift, and we understand when that happens. But we also want to make it clear it does have an impact on the success, or in this case, lack thereof, they see with their programs. They did have some students stumble across the page, and there were some accounts created, but they weren't getting selected for projects. They weren't matching it with employer engagement efforts. They weren't sending out consistent reminders. And as a result, these students weren't getting the paid professional experience and they weren't getting that valuable feedback from employers. But we also want to make it clear, everything I've highlighted thus far are ways to engage your students and get them to take those steps and get that traffic to the pages and create accounts. And all that is important. But a really, really important piece, and really what you should do first, is make sure that you are also engaging employers. And I want to give you a little bit of background as to why in Parker Dewey history that has become more crucial, especially recently. In 2022, we updated so partners or employers can decide which schools, or rather, which students from which schools can see the projects that they post. This was based on feedback that we received both from schools who wanted their employers to be able to post exclusively for them, but really it was driven by the employers who saw the benefits of micro internships as a recruiting tool, and they decided they wanted to be able to use it more intentionally in that way. So, for example, if we have a school in Washington, it doesn't do them a lot of good to engage a student in Maine in a micro internship if their goal is to find talent for an in-person internship that's going to be happening that next semester. So, with that change in 2022, we have seen a significant increase in the number of companies who are featuring their projects to specific schools. And it's led to over half of the projects that are being posted, they're using that feature. Now, they could decide to feature it to multiple schools, they might decide to feature it just one school. And there's a variety of reasons why they're choosing to feature instead of leaving it open to all. We talked about those longer term hiring goals. It might just have to do with geographic location if they're trying to create a pipeline for something in person. A lot of times it has to do with pre-existing relationships at a school. So those employers that are already coming to your career fairs, those employers that are already tabling, those employers that are already doing info sessions, those are the employers that have the consistent recruiting needs, that this is really beneficial to them. They already have the relationships with you. So when you share micro internships with them, they're already interested in your students. If they're going to use that feature tool, they're going to use it to engage them. Sometimes they're using this as a resource to hire from a niche program, but sometimes it's just, hey, I'm starting to build a relationship with this school and they let me know their students are on Parker Dewey. So I'm going to use this to try out that talent before I make adjustments to my career fair schedule to be at that institution. It can also be a really great way to build those new employer relationships. Because again, micro internships are short. Once the project is over, if it wasn't a good fit, there's no requirement to continue with the relationship. It's a fantastic way to say to employers, our students are qualified, our students are ready, our students should be students that you're recruiting, and you can see that for yourself by engaging them in a micro internship. Another reason that companies might have projects featured to specific schools is we have some schools who will do Parker Dewey programs. So when we had that poll a little bit earlier, you saw that that is an option where schools, if they get a grant or a donation or something along those lines, will actually cover the costs for companies to engage projects that are exclusively available for their students. If the school is paying for the project, it's only going to be those students that get selected. So templates from the resources those schools are given make it so the companies are automatically only posting projects for their students. And that too is a great way to build some more employer relationships. So with that importance of employer engagement in mind, again, engaging employers, best way to make sure there are relevant opportunities for your students on the platform. We've seen very similar to students, standalone emails are a great way to drive traffic. So that same school that did the Leap into a Micro internship event, they also send a standalone email to their employers in conjunction with that event. They saw a bump in traffic. We saw this public university send a standalone email in March. They also did a webinar. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But the email and the webinar both saw spikes in traffic from their employers. Now, something you'll notice about the employer side, for the student side, I highlighted how a newsletter can drive traffic. On the employer side, we've seen that a newsletter can serve as a nice reminder, but for whatever reason, we're really just not seeing the same traffic bumps if you do an employer newsletter that we're necessarily seeing when sent as a standalone email. So we're not saying not to put it in a newsletter, but we are saying if you really want to see the traffic, a standalone email is a way to go. We're also see that sharing at employer events can be a great way to drive traffic. If you have employer advisory boards, if you have recruiting summits, if you have employer information sessions, whatever you may call your employer engagement events, sharing micro internships at those events has been seen to drive traffic. And tagging employers on LinkedIn, not just resharing the post, but if your institution permits it, tagging a few employers you think should be taking advantage of this opportunity can be a great way to get folks excited, to get that micro internship momentum rolling. So here's an example we shared for a school. We tagged some of their alumni. They appreciate it. Thanks so much for sharing. We're going to be in touch. This can be a great way to build that awareness and create more opportunities for your students. Something we also do regularly for our partners, and this is for our basic partners as well as our Parker Dewey Plus partners, is if you wanted to host a webinar specifically for your audience, we're happy to do that because we found it can be a great way to, again, build that awareness and get them to post micro internships for your students, become aware of how they can use this as a recruiting tool. So what you see on the screen right now are those bumps in traffic when a partner has decided to host a Parker Dewey webinar for their employers. Because our goal is to do whatever we can to create more opportunities for your students, we try to make this as easy as possible. So we will set up the materials for you to share in terms of an email invitation, an email reminder. We will also handle setting up the registration and the registration page. We will take care of the presentation itself. All we ask for your team to do is commit to sending out those email invitations and reminders. And then on the day of, just say a quick hello to everybody and then pass it over to Parker Dewey. We will take care of it from there. A couple reasons why partners might like doing this option, or we tend to see a tendency to doing this instead of inviting employers to our open to all webinars. Since it's your audience, you will be informed of who has registered, who has expressed interest, and if your institution qualifies for any particular programs, or if there are any attributes about your student body that you want highlighted. Since it's your audience, we make that clear. And we also make sure it's very salient that they can feature these projects exclusively to your students. So we do have a poll there if y'all haven't already noticed it. If you are interested in perhaps having one of these webinars scheduled for your employer partners so they can understand micro internships and get started with creating their accounts and creating opportunities to engage your students, please let us know in the poll and we will be sure to follow up. So we saw before that chart that showed the impact of the consistent promotion to students. Here we have a chart that also shows some of that impact of consistent promotion to employers. So we see a public college, they were consistently putting it out there. They were getting the views. They were getting companies creating accounts from their page. They were having companies selecting their students for these projects. And their students, again, they're getting paid, they're getting experience, they're getting feedback. But when we see a partner, sometimes we have partners who are sharing it just with their students or not with employers. Sometimes we have partners who aren't doing really much with either one. Again, you're just not going to see the same results. There still might be a few students who persist and get selected, but it's just not quite as likely unless you are sharing both those student persistence metrics with them and encouraging them to keep going, and also sharing with your employers to create those opportunities that are going to align with your students' goals and really give them that motivation to continue applying so they can hit those success metrics. Something else that is an option for helping you share this with both students and employers is we do have a student ambassador option. Now we're going to talk about Parker Dewey Plus, or you had that little highlight of it in the poll here a second ago. But Parker Dewey Plus, this is something that's actually included in that $2,000 a year subscription. 360 of that $2,000 a year subscription actually goes to one of your students that you end up selecting to act as a Parker Dewey student ambassador. And what they do in this role, it's an 18-hour project, and we've templated it all out. They're going to help you spread the word about micro internships, not only to their peers, but also to employers. So the micro intern we have on the screen, her name is Lexi. She did a fantastic job at her institution of acting as a Parker Dewey student ambassador. She gave little presentations in her classes. She posted on social media. She went and presented to her local chamber of commerce. And in big results, or big thanks to her efforts, they saw the number of micro internships selecting students at their institution literally triple. So when you have these student ambassadors doing those engagement things on both the student and employer side, this really has a nice opportunity to be effective too. Again, if you decide you want to be a Parker Dewey Plus partner, this is included in that subscription. If you are staying at the basic no cost level, you can still do this separately. It's a $400 cost, like all micro internships, 90%. So the 360 goes to the micro intern. The remaining 10% covers administration costs. But for $400, it can be a really meaningful impact to get some support and to create a paid professional opportunity for one of your students. And then our next resource here is really to kind of put a nice bow on all these suggestions that we've made. And these are our partner checklists. So these are something that we launched late last year, and they're designed to give you all the resources you need to kind of hit those 5 to 7 points each year. So you will find in this checklist, we have language for you to introduce this to employers, We encourage you to make sure that that is on your employer-facing pages, and we give you examples of how other schools have done this, made sure their employers are aware. We also give you templates to share. So when we talked earlier about encouraging you to share those student events, we have templates, whether it be digital monitors, or if you want to send an email, we've got templates. Or if you need a flyer, we've got resources that make it easy for you to share those events. At the same time, we've got resources if you need more information later, if you didn't indicate today that you want a webinar, but you want to learn more maybe for the future, you can learn more about that options here. So really, the sections are the things that you should be incorporating into your existing resources. Anywhere students are looking for experience and anywhere employers are looking to recruit, information about Parker Dewey should be there for best results. We also want you to make sure as many people on your campus are as possible, because really everyone should be involved in career readiness. So you want to make sure as many faculty and staff on your campus as possible are also aware of these micro internships. So once a year, we encourage you, if you have new hires, or even if you don't, even if it's the same team, do a quick review of Parker Dewey and how it works for your students and employers. And once a year, send an email to your faculty, your deans, your advisors, your coaches, your team at the institution, and let them know about these micro internships too. And then do at least a few proactive things, at least a few times a year, to share this with students and employers. That's our annual must-dos checklist. We also have a getting started checklist. These are the things that should be done when you first set up partnership, but we ask you to confirm that they're still accurate every year, just in case there have been changes. So you want to make sure there's always a student-facing and employer-facing point of contact for our partnership. We understand for some of our smaller partners, that was the institution I started at, it was a one-person shop. So for some of you, that may be the same person, but you want to make sure that we have the correct contacts every year. You want to make sure you have those links to your pages. A big one, we're seeing a lot of schools who are really tightening up their email security, and rightfully so. I worked at a school that got hacked. It was scary stuff. So you really want to make sure to avoid Parker Dewey getting caught in some of those strengthened spam filters that you follow our safe listing instructions. This is something you'll want to share with your IT team. And with Parker Dewey, reminder, there is no single sign-on. There is no you sharing information with us. Information goes one way and it is from us to you. But when it comes to email, you do want to make sure you share our safe listing instructions with your IT team. It breaks our heart when a student has put together a great profile, they've applied thoughtfully, they get selected, and then that email goes to their spam folder, and the company ends up selecting someone else because they never heard from the micro intern. So please, 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 if you haven't already, that step on the getting started checklist is key. You'll find the safe listing instructions at the bottom of our university FAQs. If you click and scroll down a little bit, you'll see this right here, and these are the instructions you'll want to share with your IT team. So these checklists, again, were introduced at the end of last year. Many of you already noticed I've got a poll going. I just like to see, even though we've been trying, we know folks are busy and inboxes are full. So I like to get an idea of what the level of awareness of these checklists was before. So if you haven't already, we'd love for you to let us know. And we have also instituted these checklists as a part of our basic level partnership because as we've seen from the examples in this presentation, those steps, the emails on the student side, the newsletters, including in presentations, the intentional employer engagement, those pieces are all very data-driven examples of what you can do to enhance the likelihood of micro internship success for your students. And we want to make sure if we're pulling your data, it's likely there are exciting things to share there. So for our basic level partners, those of you who are at our no-cost basic level, annually, we are asking that you complete, those getting started in annual must-do checklists, as that is now a requirement for requesting your annual Parker Dewey data. So you can fill out the form to request your data right here. It's on the same page where you will find those checklists, also the link to hire a Parker Dewey student ambassador if you're interested in that option. But when you fill out this form, that's where you will confirm, we sent out an email to employers in this month, or we did an employer webinar in this month. We reminded students about your events in this month. All those things also where you will confirm you've done things like follow those safe listing instructions. And once you've completed those things, that's when we will be happy to share your data so you can see the impact of those efforts. If you are interested in receiving additional data, our partners who do one of those webinars we were talking about earlier, since we've seen that those can be a great way to drive engagement, we usually see 3 months after the webinar. That's when we see the full impact. So we're happy to give those partners an additional data pool in every year they do one of those employer webinars. And we also have a special offer for folks who maybe aren't in a position to do that paid subscription for Parker Dewey Plus, but are still interested in seeing what that on-demand data access looks like. So a reminder, Parker Dewey Plus allows you to see all your data on demand. You're going to be able to log into a dashboard and see which of your students have created accounts. Are they applying? How many applications? What projects have they been selected for? Who are the companies? What are the project titles? What are the start and end dates? What's the compensation? Not only are you going to be able to see that, but you're also going to get some employer insights that you don't get in those annual basic level reports. You'll be able to see if any companies have created an account from your employer-facing page, even if they haven't posted yet. You'll be able to see a history of any company that has ever posted a project and specifically named your institution as one they want to engage. You're able to see all the currently available projects from that view as well. And if any of your micro interns or any of your employers have left feedback for the other party, you're able to see that on demand too. One of my favorite parts about Parker Dewey Plus coming from career services is also if you notice that there is a student who's been applying to a lot, but they're struggling to get selected. With Parker Dewey Plus, you can actually go see their profile and their application responses so you can better understand, why this student might be struggling, what's going on with their applications that might be leading to these results. And finally, Parker Dewey Plus also gives you access to a really easy to download impact report that is going to show you the highlights from the last 12 months. So as I'm sharing those things, if you're thinking, oh yeah, that would make my reporting life a lot better, I'm interested in that. We do have the opportunity this year to try it out at no cost. All you need to do is complete those partner checklists and submit a data request. And again, that's from this page right here before September 15th. And that is the same process you would do if you just wanted your annual data request anyway. But if you do it before September 15th, we're going to give you access to that Parker Dewey Plus through the rest of 2025. So that's going to go through December. I do want to make sure it's clear the Parker Dewey Plus access trial unfortunately does not include that student ambassador. You would be welcome if you had $400 in the budget to hire one on your own to accompany that to really get the most value out of this, but just wanted to make sure that that is transparent. So we hope that those of you who are excited about data, and I imagine that's many of you since you're in a data-driven best practices webinar, are incentivized to start attacking those checklists, not only because it's going to help your students be more likely to get selected, but also so you can get the benefit of this free trial. We're really excited about Parker Dewey Plus, and we want as many partners to experience it as we can. And I just talked all about Parker Dewey Plus. So this was actually the slide I should have had at that time, but I was just really excited to see Bluey and Bingo jumping up and down. If you know, you know. So this again is all those things, just an example of the data you will see at a glance, how much your students have earned, what they're up to, what employers are up to. So it's just really beneficial for you to be in the know about all these things that are happening. There are also some other opportunities where you might be eligible to get Parker Dewey Plus at no cost. If you are an institution that already has a program, you are covering the cost for employers to engage your students, then you can get Parker Dewey Plus. That's included typically at the cost of your program. So if you're looking to set one of those up, please know that Parker Dewey Plus is included. We also have a few larger programs that are covering the cost for eligible schools to get Parker Dewey Plus. So this is going to be a random group of folks, but this is what the foundation decided. The DeLuca Foundation has covered the costs for certain schools, and this includes any HBCU, members of the HSI Career Collaborative, and any college or university in Florida or Connecticut. So if you fall in any of those categories, again, that's HBCUs, members of the HSI Career Collaborative, or Connecticut or Florida school, you can actually get Parker Dewey access through May 2026 at no cost to you. If you think you fall in one of those categories and you want to learn more, my email address is in the chat. We can get you set up. It's genuinely no cost. You get to try it because of that program for free. If you are a public college or university in Kansas, that's also an opportunity. You get to try Parker Dewey Micro Internship or Parker Dewey Plus for the duration of that program at no cost. And if you are a college or university in Indiana, doesn't matter if you're public or private, you can also get access to Parker Dewey Plus through the duration of the IEDC Micro Internship Program. It stands for Indiana Economic Development Corporation Micro Internship Program, but you could probably understand why we just call it the IEDC program. And that access also will end when the program ends. So it'll end when the program is no longer available. So again, if you fall into one of those categories and you want to get that free Parker Dewey Plus access, please follow up. We'll be excited to help you get that set up. And if you are doing a program, like we mentioned, you get to see that too. But here's just an example. We've been doing some comparisons between, those who are sharing with students consistently and those who aren't, those who are sharing with employers consistently and those who aren't. Here we see some contrast between a school who is doing a program. So they're very intentionally doing both. They're covering costs to kind of get employers excited about it and try it for free. So you can see the outcomes for this school that has done a program, how many employer signups they have, the satisfaction, the students finding it valuable. Again, basic partners can have a lot of the satisfaction too. Programs just make it more likely, especially kind of as an introduction to the Parker Dewey platform. And here's another example from state universities as well. So you can see, students are still here and there getting selected as basic partners. The more you do with engagement, the more likely it is, but a program really just ups the likelihood. So if you're interested in learning more about programs, obviously I didn't update the date here, but we do have another session coming here. That's going to be Wednesday, November 19th. You don't have to wait for that next section. You can always see the recording and slides about programs, but that information is there and available to you. So to recap what we have covered here today, if you're not already a partner, establish that partnership. We already had that poll up, so if you are interested in whether it's starting with basic, upgrading to plus, doing a program, we'll follow up accordingly with the information you put on the poll. We also encourage you to tackle those partner checklists. Those steps are going to drive those 5 to 7 points of awareness per year that are designed to lead to more success. So make sure that you're doing those things, especially since we have this fall 2025 offer. Complete those checklists and submit that data request by September 15th to get that Parker Dewey Plus access, typically only available through a $2,000 a year subscription. But if you meet that criteria, you can try it for free through December of 2025. And already covered that option for considering an upgrade. Parker Dewey Plus is available. Student Ambassador is included for subscribers. So we encourage you to consider those options as well. And with that, folks, I know we only have a couple of minutes left. If you have any questions, the chat has been quiet, but please feel free to put those in there. If you want to raise your hand, if there's something it's easier for you to ask out loud, we'll have time for that as well in this last minute. But while we wait for those questions, just want to say thanks so much for your time today. I really hope this was helpful. For those of you who really like data and metrics, I hope that this gave you something to kind of hold on to and say, okay, if I can get my students to this point, if I can get my employers engaged, so it's got you excited to hit those metrics and increase that likelihood of micro internship success.